Hello everyone and welcome to Call Sign Trolley Models. Andre here, and today we have another large inbox review. The Trumpeter 1/35 scale MIL Mi-24V the Hind-E helicopter. And this is going to be a massive model for a helicopter. Its main rotor diameter is 494 millimeters and overall length with the rotors turning 565 millimeters and a wingspan, so these wings right here, of 187 millimeters. So in the US standard units, that is a total of 565 millimeters is approximately 22.25 inches for your overall length with the rotors turning. Main rotor diameter of 19 and a little over 19.5 inches, and a wingspan of about 7.75 inches. So again, absolutely massive for a helicopter. This is probably, minus the CH-54, the Atari, this might be the largest helicopter kit out there. Also with this kit, it does have a total parts count of more than 460 parts. It also comes with the photo etch part for a windshield wiper, seat belts, and the antenna. And we do have a film instrument part for this kit. So going on to the side of the box right here, we have two different decal options. We have Blue 4 CIS Army ILA Berlin Brandenburg 1992. And then we have the Tiger from the 0705 Czech Air Flying Brogel, sorry if I mispronounced that, Belgium, of August of 1998 right there. Then we go off to the other side and we just have the top profile of the two different versions that we have right here, and also a nice little history of the Mi-24 right there. Now we get the box open up. Let me get it turned back around. Get the box open back up and let's see how everything looks. Yeah, this is absolutely massive for a helicopter, and it is all very nicely packed, mostly single packed right here from what I can see, and then we have the box inside the box right here. So I'm going to get everything set up and put off to the side, and then when I'm back we can start going through the instructions, decals, and all the plastic included in this kit. So give me 1 second and I'll be right back. Alright, so starting off with the instructions, this is item number 05103, and then we have the standard read before assembly and legends of the symbols that we're going to be using on the instructions right here. And then we open it up, and again we have our standard parts call out. All the numbers for the parts are easily legible as well. So as you can see, all the different parts right here. And then we are starting with our build, looking at doing our seat belts right here, and then our pilot seats going on, and then a couple other parts, our troop seats going together right there. Then we're starting on the cockpit and the aft cargo deck right there, and also our instrument panels and everything going on right along there. So again, looking like it's going to be very nicely detailed. After that, we have a couple more parts for our cockpit, and then we have the overhead and the aft bulkhead for our rear cabin right there. Shows you how to paint, and a couple other parts to go on there. Then we have our engine assembly going together. Continue on with the engine. We do have a lot of detail parts going on to the engine right through here. Our left and right engine assembly being finished up right there. After that is all done, we are getting all the engines attached and the FOD protectors for the engines. I believe that's what those are for. And then we have the all-moving tailplane, our air-to-ground missile guidance antenna, and then our anti-tank missile optical guidance system right there. And then we're working on our wings, adding in all the pylons and everything to the wings. This can be very nicely loaded with ordnance on this kit. Alright, so after that, working on our landing gear, getting those all together right there, all done. And then also our gun assembly getting assembled as well. Then we're getting in our nose landing gear well, and then we are attaching our aft landing gear to our fuselage right there. And then after all that is done, we are getting our fuselage halves, the sub-assembly for the interior, and everything else getting assembled into the fuselage and all assembled and sandwiched together right there. After that, we are working on our doors and also our engine hatches. We do have the option of having the hatches open or closed on this one, and also with our cabin doors as well, having them opened or closed right there, as you can see. And then we're moving on to our stub wings, getting those attached, and also our tail rotor right there. And then we have a few other antenna lumps and bumps and such going on to the fuselage right there. And then we have our tailplane right there, or tail bumper going on, ammo box assembly, and we're starting to work on our clear parts right there. Then we're adding in our landing gear doors, a bunch of other lumps and bumps, the housing for our nose turret right there, and a couple other pieces going on. As you can see, a lot of detail going on in this kit right here. Then we're working on our main rotor assembly right there, getting all those attached and done. And then we're attaching our clear parts, and then a few other parts. Now we're working on our ordnance. Like I said, this thing can carry a lot of ordnance for a helicopter. Different types, your rockets, your bombs, your cluster bombs, rocket pods, grenade launchers, cannons. I mean, just all types of ordnance is included in this kit right here. Alright, and then at the very end we have our decal placements for all of our ordnance right here, and then we have the loadout specification tab right here, so you can definitely see how you want to load up your helicopter when it's all done. Alright, so up next we have our color call out guide right here. No actual manufacturer from what I can see. We just have the federal standard numbers right here, and then we have the different schemes. So this one is Blue 4 from the CIS Army, ILA Berlin Brandenburg of 1992. A nice two-tone or three-tone gray over sand with the baby blue belly right there, and we have all the different profiles right there. Doesn't actually look like there's any decals on the belly of this aircraft, so it should be a fairly simple decal. Doesn't look like it's really loaded down with decals on this. Then we flip it over to the other side. We have Tiger 0705, the Czech Air Force, Kleinbrogel, Belgium, of August of 1998. Nice with the Tiger scheme on that. That's going to look pretty nice. Alright, so now moving on to our decals. Decals are the standard Trumpeter decals. They do look very nice. The carrier film is cut pretty close to the actual decals on here, and everything looks in registry. I'm not seeing any issues. Alright, so issue is with these right here, they just look like they are squares. They don't look like actual letters on those, but everything else on here does look pretty nice. For decals. Not seeing any issues with any of those. Alright, so inside the box we have all of our clear parts right here. Going through, just looking at these. Alright, so we have our clear engine hatches right here. Detail on those look pretty nice. The panel lines and rivets all look pretty nice. I can't really tell on how deep the rivets or panel lines are on these clear parts, so I'm not feeling anything when I'm rubbing my fingers over them. And then we do have some interior detail on the inside with some frame on that, so if you want to have your engine hatches open, you will have some nice detail on there. And also another nice touch to this that there's no ejector pin marks on the actual plastic parts. Everything is on the outside of the actual part, so that is very nice if you're wanting to leave them open, or if you're just wanting to leave them clear and have them attached to the model so you can show off the engine work. Okay, and moving on, we have our other canopy pieces. There are a few little scuffs there. I mean, they're going to be easy to polish out and buff out on that, so no issues with that. The issue I have is with the instrument panels right here. So it's a clear part, but then the parts that are supposed to be clear, like the instrument dial faces, they're drilled out. So again, I don't get why they do all these parts in clear and then drill out the parts that are actually supposed to be clear on the part. So that is kind of one thing that has always baffled me with them, but you can fix it going in with a little bit of UV clear resin right here and add your dial faces and you'll be good to go. Another thing I kind of noticed on this is that we do have a little like seam line going right down the middle of this clear part right here, and it is embedded in the plastic right here, so no matter what you do, you will not be able to polish that out on that piece. Alright, so now moving on to our main canopy piece. Everything looks pretty nice. Again, we have a few little scuff marks here and there, but they are light and on the surface, so definitely be easy to polish out and buff out with those. But the parts, the clear parts of here, are looking nice and crystal clear. We do have a little bit of a crack right here on this one. You can kind of see it right there in the camera, but I mean, other than that, everything is looking very nice indeed on these clear parts. Some nice rivet detail on those as well. Alright, and then up next we have our clear film for our instrument panels right here. And then on the reverse side we have our photo etch with our seatbelt buckles and our, I'm not seeing any actual seatbelts though. We do have some grill stuff right here, and then also our windshield wipers and a few antenna going on as well. Alright, so now we're starting off with the plastic, and like I said earlier, this helicopter can carry a ton of ordnance and also a variety of ordnance. So typical of Trumpeter, we're going to be getting a lot of sprues of ordnance right here, and our first sprue is a double sprue with our rocket pods going through, some of our fab bombs going right there, and then another cannon pod right here. The detail on them, for the most part, from what I can see, is pretty nice. We do have a little bit of flash on here, but that's not too bad. And then everything else on here is looking okay. The bomb fins, they do seem a little bit thick and a little bit squared off, but I mean, that's easy to file down and get that knife edge on those fins, or you can go and get the aftermarket ones. There are a ton of aftermarket ordnance for these kits right here. Moving right along, we have another double sprue with more ordnance going on right here, different fab bombs and everything going through right here. Again, very nice detail molded in for this. No flash or anything that I can see right now. So again, very nicely done on these ordnance. And the same issue with these bomb fins as well as earlier. Alright, so now we're starting on the actual helicopter parts, and looking at this, we do have some nice rivet detail on here, as you can hopefully see in the camera. Right here. And then everything else on here looks fairly nice. No issues with anything so far from what I can see. I'm not sure what this part is for. Looks like possibly an instrument panel, but I am not sure. And then we have the car door for our cockpit right here. Again, a little bit of flash on the edge, but not too bad. Knocks off with the fingernail. Then we flip it over to the other side. Again, with the car door, it looks like we're going to have some detail parts that go in there to kind of liven that up. And then on this side, on this door right here, we do have a lot of ejector pin marks on these two pieces right here. And then for our cabin doors, again, no ejector pin marks on that. And then for our landing gear doors, we do have a couple of ejector pin marks right here in the corner that should be fairly easy to take care of. They are fairly shallow, and this one does have a little raise to it, a little flash to it, but it should be fairly easy to fill and sand out. And then we have the other doors right here. Again, no ejector pin marks on any of these. Alright, and then our next sprue, again, a lot of nice surface detail on the actual parts right here. And then we have our cockpit sidewall right here, where we have a lot of nice detail molded into that as well, right there. And then some of our radio panels and such, and then our instrument panel right here. Gonna have the film and then the glass part that goes over that. Not much issues with anything going on. These seats do look a little bit generic, and the detail on them is a little bit soft in my opinion right there. Flip it over to the other side. I don't really think you're going to be able to see anything on this sprue from the reverse side. Our gun does look very nice. It is not drilled out, so definitely going to need to take care of that. But everything else on here is looking fairly nice. Alright, so moving right along, we have our winglets right here. Again, really nice rivet detail and panel line detail on these. I'm hoping that the camera will pick those up right there, as you can see. Very nice detail on that. And then on the other side for our undersides, same deal. All of the winglets and rivet detail looking very nice on that. And then we flip it over to the other side. The only thing I'm really worried about on this is our exhaust port right here, and we do have a couple of ejector pin marks right in the middle that I'm not sure on how difficult those are going to be to get to or fill or sand, but we'll have to see when we actually build this kit. Alright, and then up next we have the sprue with our landing gear and our wheels and all that stuff going on. The landing gear bay, no ejector pin marks, not really much detail to it, just a few little frames there. And then also with our wheels, the tread detail on there is actually pretty soft on there, so definitely going to look into getting some aftermarket wheels for this, just to kind of liven the wheels up and really make those stand out, because these, you're going to lose a lot of this tread detail when you are sanding out the seam line on those. And that's for all the wheels going on right there. And then we have a few other detail pieces going on. For the actual landing gear struts, I'm not seeing any issues so far on this side of the landing gear with any ejector pin marks or anything. We flip it over to the other side, and again with the landing gear struts, no issues. But here on the actual landing gear bays, we do have a few rather large and pronounced ejector pin marks sticking out right there, as you can see. So those are definitely going to take some sanding down. They are raised, so but they are on flat spots, so this should be fairly easy to take care of on those. Alright, up next we have another double sprue, and on this one again we have some more ordnance included on this with our grenade launchers and also some rocket launchers and some stuff for our pylons going on right here. And we also have our engine detail going on right here. So the main part of the engine for our cabling and everything looks rather nice. Not really seeing any issues with it. Our engine bodies right here, we're going to be adding a lot of this detail to it. And then our fans also are looking pretty nice. This mold actually does look pretty rough around the edges, literally around the edges. Let me get it to where it focuses. It looks, I'm hoping that the camera, and then you can see how rough this looks around the edges. So definitely going to take a lot of sanding to get this cleaned up on all sides of it. And then moving on to the rest of the detail parts. Again, on this side I'm not seeing any issues. Flip it over, and we do have a couple of ejector pin marks on these pieces right here. But other than that, those are really the only two areas that might even be visible on this side of the sprue. Alright, so up next we have our first large sprue with our propellers right here, or not our propellers, our rotor blades. Sorry about that. Again, the detail on the rotors do look pretty nice. We have some nice bolt and rivet detail on there. I can't really tell. They look like they are straight. I'm not sure if when you unclip them from the sprue, if they are going to have that droop, but the droop is not molded into it right now. But other than that, all the other pieces in the rotor assembly do look fairly nice. Our tail rotor is one solid piece, so that helps save some assembly right there. And then on the reverse side, again, a lot of nice detail. I'm not sure how raised this detail is supposed to be on the main rotors. I'm hoping that the camera will pick that up right there, but everything else for the most part is looking pretty decent. All the ejector pin marks are put in locations where they're not going to be visible when they are assembled. Alright, now finally our last sprue, and like I said, this is absolutely massive, especially for a helicopter. This is going to be one beefy kit, or one beefy model when it is all done. We have our two fuselage halves, the overhead, a couple of our overhead pieces right here in the bulkhead, and then our floor right there. And going through everything, we do have some nice rivet detail, panel line detail on the main fuselage bodies. Gonna have to check the accuracy of this with the rivets, and also see if they are recessed or actual positive rivets on the actual hind. Alright, so that's it for the fuselage on this side. Our cabin floor, really not much detail to it. We have a few little locator holes for our troop seats and a couple other bits up here, and then with our front cockpit and everything, we're going to be adding in a lot of detail up there. And again, with our bulkhead, again, not much detail going on that, just a couple boxes. And then our overhead, again, we have a little bit of quilting molded into it, but there's no like texture to it on that. And then we also have these boxes that are going to be glued in up here. Then we have the repeat for the other fuselage half right here. As you can see, the same level of detail and everything that's going on with the other side. Now we flip it over to the other side, and the only area that I'm really kind of worried about is this back area right here. And from what I can tell, all the ejector pin marks are in areas on this side of the fuselage, in areas that you're not going to be able to see. And then on this side, alright, so we do have, alright, so yeah, because we have both cabin doors having open, you will actually be able to see some of these ejector pin marks when it is assembled. So definitely going to want to take care of those, like these right here, and then possibly this one, but the floor is coming in right along that edge, so that might cover up those ejector pin marks. And as for the cockpit, we're going to have sidewalls that go and cover all these, but this one is a little bit raised right here, so definitely going to want to sand that down, just make sure we don't have any fit issues with that. Alright, so that is everything for the Trumpeter 135th Mi-24 Hind helicopter. And I can say about the kit, for a helicopter, this thing is absolutely massive, and that is without the rotor blades on top of it. So this is going to be a major real estate hog right here on your bench. It is going to take up a lot of space on your bench, and also on your display shelf when you get it finished. For the kit, the detail on it looks actually very nice. The rivet detail, everything all around looks pretty nice. The weak spots are with the wheels. Definitely with the wheels, that was a major weak spot. And then that's really the only main weak spot that I can think of with this kit. The glass work was nice and clear, only a couple little scuffs that are here and there, easy to polish out. The armament, it looks like it will get the job done, depending on what level of accuracy you're wanting to go for and how detailed you're wanting to go. If you want just straight out of the box, the kit parts will work, and the same with the wheels. If you want it straight out of the box, the wheels will work as well. But there are aftermarket accessories out there. I do know there is a company out there that does do the rotor head and the tail rotor, wheels, all that going on. So we'll have to see. And the one thing that really just grinds my gears, it bugs the living bejesus out of me, are the clear instrument dial or instrument faces that they have the instrument dials actually drilled out on that. That's one thing that just, it bugs me. So I'm probably going to go with the 3D printed decals on that part, because that just, it bugs me on that. But other than that, that's everything on the kit. The decals also, the 2 color schemes on it look fairly nice. You have 2 good options to choose from, and there's also, if you want to go out there and get some aftermarket decals out there, I'm sure there are plenty out there for that. But other than that, that's all I got to say about this kit. I hope you guys enjoyed this inbox review, and I hope if you're on the fence about getting this kit, I hope this video helped you make your decision. If you haven't yet, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the bell button for notifications of when I post future content. And until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. Stay frosty and happy modeling.